Welcome to Lod Cave. This is a well-known cave and tourist attraction near Pai. It's actually on Highway 1095, about halfway between Mae Hong Son and Pai. So I spent the night in Pai, and then I woke up this morning and rode my scooter the 50 kilometers to get here where the cave is located. And I just arrived. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning, which I think is pretty early to visit this place. I saw online that it opens at 9, and I don't see any other visitors here yet. But it's really interesting arriving this early because as I was riding my scooter up to here, I saw a lot of local people either walking or riding scooters coming in this direction, and they're all holding the kerosene lanterns that the guides use to take visitors through the cave. So all the guides are on their way to the cave, at the same time that I was coming here. And I can see groups of people hanging out together, laughing and joking, and I think they're all cave guides. And they all meet up in the morning, and they're getting ready for their day, just like anyone going to work. I just find that kind of fascinating. As always, I'm fascinated by the cave. I'm very interested in caves in general, but I'm also really interested in how places are organized, and I have a million questions, like how much do the guides get paid? How many days a week do they work? How do they decide who gets assigned to which visitors? If I go up right now and say I'd like to go into the cave, which of the guides will be assigned to me? Is there a pecking order? Is there a, are they in alphabetical order? Yeah, all these sorts of questions. But I just arrived, as I said. I'm just getting the lay of the land, as I like to do. And this is the main entrance. And I have no idea how this place works. So I'm going to move around really slowly and try to figure all of this out. They've got some signs here where we can learn about the cave. So, of course, you have to have a guide to go into this cave. That's the way this place works, and it says that right at the very top. Visitors to Lod Cave are required to use a village lantern guide. It is forbidden to enter the cave without a guide. Penalties apply. So you've got tour guide services. There's a fee for that. And then there's a separate fee if you want to go through on a raft. So the way I understand it is this is a river cave. It's a limestone cave, about 1,666 meters long. It's called the Lod Cave, but you also see it referred to with other names like Nam Lod Cave, because I think Nam is the name of the river. So, the river Nam Cave. And you also see it listed as Tham Lod or Tham Nam Lod. And I believe the word Tham is Thai for cave. So it has a river going through the limestone cave, and there are 3 caverns or caves sort of above the river. I'm not quite sure how they're organized, but I can see they're listed here in front of me. So the first one is the Big Column Cave. So the first cave has a big column of 21.45 meters in the middle of the cave. The column has developed beautifully from stalagmite-stalactite converging. So you've got a stalactite coming down from the top of the cave, a stalagmite coming up from the bottom, and then they met in the middle and formed a giant column. Number 2 is the Doll Cave. It has beautiful stalactites and stalagmites which look like several dolls. A crocodile and other interesting shapes laying on the floor. There's also faded prehistorical painting on the cave wall from about 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. And finally, there is the Coffin Cave. And Coffin Cave is one of the most famous, among others, 80 caves in Bang Ma Pa district. The cave is as evidenced in the settlement in the past because of the teak wood coffins and ancient human corpse found in this cave. And when I was reading about this place, I also learned that sometimes of the year you can't go through on a raft because the water levels are too high during the rainy season. But this is not the rainy season, so I think you can go through with a raft. There's also fish in the water, and you can buy bags of fish food. I can see them on the table in there. And let's see what else have we got going on here. So here's a price list. I think these prices are up to date because you can visit all of the caves, all 3 of them, with the rafting, and that's one price. But you can also you could only visit cave number 1, or you could visit cave number 1 and 2, or you could visit all 3, and the prices are here. Cave number 1, the column cave, is 200 baht per group. Visit cave 1 and 2 together, column cave and the doll cave, that's 250 baht per group. And I think you can go to see those on foot, and then after those, then you get into your bamboo raft. Visit all 3 cave rafting to Coffin cave, and that's 500 baht. And a group is considered 1 to 3 people. I am a group of 1, of course. And I'm going to do all 3, of course, so it will be 500 baht for me, unless some other foreigners show up and we can share the bamboo raft. And I believe there's a choice. You can go through on the bamboo raft and then come back again on the raft, or you can exit out the far side and hike back by a different way, something like that. None of this, I haven't learned any of this yet. Still trying to figure all that out. So here's another sign, Tham Lod Tourism, cave entrance, doll cave. Okay, cave entrance, then the column cave, then the doll cave, then the bamboo rafting to take you to the Coffin cave. And this is interesting. These appear to be all of the guides. Yeah, every one of them has a photo taken, men and women. Total goes up to 165. As always, I'm not exactly clear on what it is I'm supposed to do. I'm right at the entrance, I believe, but this looks like it's the ticket counter, but it looks like it's closed. And there's a lot of people here, like local people, but they're all just sitting and chatting with each other. No one has approached me in any way. I'm afraid if I go through the gate, they're just going to yell at me that, no, you can't go there, we're not open yet, or something like that. But yeah, here's the whole area. I already made a mistake because there's a sign right where that scooter is that says motorcycle parking with an arrow to the right and the left. So I stopped right there and parked my scooter. And then they told me, no, you can't park there. You have to come down here and park. But the signs in Thailand they always seem to be in the wrong place. Here's another guide. You can see she's carrying the lantern in her left hand. I'm very curious about the lanterns too, because they all look brand new, very, very shiny new lamps. And I'm wondering whether the guides have to pay for their own lamp, because they clearly take them home with them. Do they have to buy them when they get a job as a guide? Does it come out of their salary to pay for the lantern? Or is it supplied by the community? What about the fuel? You know, yeah, I guess they take them home every night and clean them and keep them in good condition. But yeah, I was just saying this is the entrance right here, and then there's some restaurants and cafes over there. And here's another sort of information for visitors to the cave, but as you can see, there's nobody here. And there's a sign that says show proof of vaccination before entering. Let's see, if I walk through this gate, maybe then someone will tell me what's going on. Sorry, crap.
Probably vaccine certificate.
Mm-hmm, sure. See if more prom will work. So this is on more prom.
True. Okay, thank you.
Good. So things are happening. A soldier came up to check my vaccination certificate, and it took a while, but more prom loaded, and it showed my certificate. There's a very slow connection here, but I had a connection. So here's the fish food. So you can get 1 bag for 20 baht, or 3 bags for 50 baht. So I have my fish food. So that I always like feeding the fish. And here's an information counter. Okay, so this is where I can sign in. Right here.
Okay, 500 baht. Ui, còn nó là nhập. Ui, còn nữa. Sao? Theo nó phải hùng ngái thế nào nữa lại? Cho nào thì vậy? Và tôi cần nên những cái này quá con lại cho đồ vào. Cái for you. Cái nó tao đây.
So even though there is a like information counter and registration outside at the parking lot, you actually come inside and you do it here. And I paid 500 baht because I'm one person, but I could be as many as 3. 500 baht would cover 3 people. And some money changed hands between the counter and my guide, but I don't know exactly how all that works. I'd love to know. Yeah, it's very well groomed inside the park area. It's very nice. And there's a visitor center there, but I don't know if it's open yet. I'll go in there after I visit the cave, I guess. And this is my guide in front of me with the lantern. Yeah, I'll go in there. Okay. All right, my guide is waiting for me. One thing I noticed all over this area already are these large spiders. I've forgotten the names of them. I keep looking up the name, but there's one right here in a web strung between the trees. So you're you're better off sticking to the sidewalks. If you go cross country and walk between those trees, you're almost definitely going to get a giant hand-sized spider in the face. And here is a little nature trail map. So big column cave, doll cave, then coffin cave. And then I think you have a choice between returning through the cave or walking back on a 1 kilometer trail. And takes you back to the beginning. I tried to ask whether you have to do one or the other, but they couldn't quite explain it to me. Nam Lod, Colors of the World. And I guess this is a recreation, they believe, of how the people would have looked who lived here. The pretty face of a woman who lived 13,460 years ago. And some rules, of course. No pets, don't touch any insects, don't touch the stalagmites and stalactites, no littering, keep silence. You have to have a village lantern guide. I like that name, actually, a village lantern guide. Makes it sound quite special. All right. Okay. I'm ready. Yes. Oh. Oh, he has to light the lantern. Oh, okay. This takes me back to my childhood on camping trips where we used kerosene lanterns like this. And it's a real art form, pumping them up just right, getting the right pressure, lighting that little sock, and then you have to adjust the flow. They're really, really bright, so it's better than a flashlight. But yeah, you can see she's pumping it up, getting it brighter and brighter. I remember my father was always in charge of the kerosene lanterns when I was a kid. And that smell of kerosene, I don't know exactly if they're using kerosene, but maybe, but that smell really brings me back to my childhood as well. It's kind of a new experience for me to have a guide, because I would normally do things at my own pace, very slowly. But of course, if you have a guide, you have to sort of go according to their schedule. And my guide is guide number 51. And I have my own soldier. We've arrived at the entrance to the cave. I'm pretty sure this is the mouth of the cave up ahead, right there. You can just see it. And I can hear the river flowing by. I still have the soldier with me. I'm starting to wonder whether he does the rafting. Maybe the guide's job is to light the way, and maybe his job is to pole the raft. We will find out. There have been some signs along the way like this one, but they're all in Thai. There's no English translation. So, Big Column Cave, then Doll Cave, then Coffin Cave. And she stopped here to pump up the lantern, get it nice and bright. And that sound, too, is so reminiscent of family camping trips. And when I was reading about the cave, there was also discussion of a lot of bats and a bird that they call a swift. And they say there are 300,000 swifts living inside this cave. Oh, the fish. Oh, look at that. So, the river is moving pretty fast right here. I'm surprised. And it's like these fish kind of hang out where the current is slower. And maybe they're used to being fed here. My My soldier, he offered to hold the GoPro for me so we can feed the fish here. They really have to hold. And in there too? Okay, I'll do both. I'll feed a little bit here and then inside as well. Let's see. that's... Look at that. They know exactly where to hang out. I don't know what kind of fish they are though. A little bit more. Very cool. There you go. Okay. Well, beware of overhead hazard. A stalactite. Because the mnemonic stalactite with a C in it means ceiling. So that's how you remember it comes down. Stalagmite has G in it for ground, comes up. So stalactite, stalagmite. That's how I remember. Wow. So this is the real entrance to the cave. Wow. That is dramatic. Very impressive. Huh. Gorgeous coloring too. There's the entrance to the cave. Beautiful rock formations, really nice. On the GoPro, it's coming across, at least on the screen, kind of a vibrant green, but it doesn't look like that in real life. Moving deeper into the cave. And I saw online that there actually are some quite uniquely shaped formations in here that really do look like what people say they look like. You often go into caves and they'll have like something that's supposed to look like a hippopotamus, and it never does. But in here they have a crocodile, an elephant, a few other things, and they all, at least in the pictures I saw, looked exactly like the animal they said they looked like. Getting darker, and my GoPro is going to struggle to see things. They have bamboo bridges. Really see some amazing stalactites here and stalagmites. Look at that. And you've got to remember to Keep an eye on the ground. You get so caught up in looking around you, you could end up tripping. And I meant to look this up, but I completely forgot. But there's a name for these when a stalactite comes down and meets a stalagmite and forms a column. There's a name for that, but I've forgotten what it is. Okay. It's very nice. It's really quite dark in here, so I don't think you'll be able to see very much.
Look like popcorn.
Oh, popcorn.
Popcorn.
So this is the popcorn formation. We saw lava, an elephant, and now popcorn. The cavern we just went through, the column cave, was really impressive, very high ceiling. Yeah, it's a really interesting floor too. That's what these rounded stones. It feels almost like they would have been put there on purpose to form a trail, but there's no way. Or maybe they did, I'm not sure. But if you have good footwear to come into this cave, I would suggest wearing it.
Look like a fox.
A
Fox.
a fox?
Yeah. Go.
Oh,
Up, up.
okay.
He look like a King Kong.
King Kong, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, the monkey stone, King
monkey.
Kong,
Monkey. King
right
Kong.
there. Yeah, it's very true. And I think we're backtracking, but I'm not entirely sure. I thought the column cave was all about that one giant column, but in fact there were many of them.
Look like a pancake.
Ah, okay. Yeah, there were quite a few of these really huge column formations in there, in the column cave, not just one. But since I have a guide with a lantern, I'm not paying as much attention to my route as I would normally if I were on my own. I'm just sort of following her. So I don't really know where we went or where we're going. I love this visual of that lantern moving ahead of me. We're crossing a bamboo bridge. In this case, it looks like the bamboo itself actually forms even the structure of the bridge. It's thick bamboo pieces they're using. So I think we've reached the point where you could take the bamboo rafts. You probably can't see them, but they're down there. Yeah, right there. But I think this long stairway climbs up to, I believe goes to the doll cave, maybe. But my guide asked me whether I was okay to climb up these stairs. It's an interesting thing about this whole cave complex, I think, is that it's so easy. It's so impressive, it's so large, and yet it's so easy to get to for anyone, you know, any age or whether you're a backpacker or older or whoever you are. So I could see some people coming to this cave that are a bit older, and they might struggle to get up all these stairs. One thing I was wondering about is what the temperature would be like inside this cave, whether I should leave my jacket on or not. I decided to take it off, and I'm glad I did, because it's certainly not as cold as you might expect. In fact, it's actually kind of hot. It's getting warmer the deeper we go in. And you better hold tight to these handrails. They're necessary. Wow. They have a lot of these curtain formations. Stalagmites and stalactites. Yeah, look at that.
Coffin.
Ah, the petroglyph.
Yeah.
Petroglyph.
เพราะว่าด้านใน
Oh, so right here is the.
อยู่นั่นน่ะที่เป็นเงาหันกับ
It's very hard to make out now, but there's just a little bit of the petroglyph
เงา
left.
ที่ป้าส่องหันก่อน
อ๋อ
อันนี้
It says here it was probably drawn 2,000 to 3,000 years ago.
อยู่สองนี่ไม่เห็นนะแต่สองนี้ครับ
ถ้าชอบส่อง
Yeah, you can just see
โอเค
the outline there. Yeah.
ทุกที่ต่อส่อง
And then there they've recreated it.
บาท
Oh, look at that.
น้ำหยดนะ
น้ำจึงออกมานี่ค่ะ
Pool of water way up here.
มาเถอะ
Oh, okay. I thought we would be exiting that cave along the same stairway, but this looks to be different. So it was a pretty big job building these two sets of stairs. And down there's the river and the bamboo rafts. Wow, that's a big cavern. Can't see it at all on the GoPro, but what can you do? Don't know if it comes across, but these stairs are no joke. This is straight down. One hand on the handrail, one on the GoPro. Just over there, that light is the bamboo rafts loading up. So again, it looks like I was wrong about this as well. I thought our lantern guide might be poling the bamboo raft, but it looks like each raft already has a boat operator on it. So this is my bamboo raft. So my guide is there with her lantern at the front. And I guess this is our driver. Have to feed some of these fish. Most of them are waiting by the dock. The water looks to be quite shallow right now anyway. You could probably wade through this, wouldn't be that difficult. I'm aiming the GoPro at me now. I'm sure you can't see me, but just wanted to say this bamboo raft is really stable. I was wondering about that, but there's no worries about that at all. It's not going to tip. It can hold 3, 4, probably 5 people easily. And yeah, I feel perfect. Because I didn't waterproof anything today, I just assumed I wouldn't be going in the water. There's looking ahead through the cave. I'm going to try to take a picture with my phone. It has a more sensitive sensor, I think. These fish must think they are like the luckiest fish in the world. They would get fed so much on such a regular basis, you know? Ah, again, probably won't show up on the GoPro, but there's a wall. The ceiling is covered in bats, I believe. That is a very dramatic exit. Very cool. I wonder if they built up a small dam over here just to keep the water levels high enough. Sounds like water going over a dam, and looks to be a bit of a drop off there. Yeah, I think that's what they did. So they're actually controlling the water levels in here. And if you haven't seen me all this time because it's too dark, one last shot of me inside the cave, perhaps. There's another group on a raft. You can see what they look like. Very low to the water, but very buoyant. There's the mouth of the cave on this end. And we've hit the shore. Even walking along this raft, I mean, it goes a little bit side to side, but not very much. It's pretty stable. Here's my, that was boat number 20. And there's my boat driver. And this group coming off their boat. You can see it's rocking a little bit, but not terribly. And this group is not the most athletic in the world, but they handled it without any trouble. It's kind of nice to be out in the light again, to be able to see. You're not so dependent on flashlights anymore. But yeah, here's the dam that I was talking about. You can tell they built a structure there to keep the water levels high enough. Very clever. And they used very basic material for the dam as well. Just wood and mud and bamboo. There's no concrete at all that I can see. Here's my lantern guide. Whoa. It's so much nicer to be able to see. And I think up here are the remains of the teak coffins. So that's where we're going next. You can see all of the bat guano down here. And here in the light, you can see what the stairs look like that they built inside here. It's going to be dark again because my guide hasn't put out her lantern, so we're going to need it. You can tell from those people how they're walking, just how steep it is. You're kind of hesitant to put your hands on the railing here because it's just covered in bat droppings. There's a nice viewpoint. You can see some of the structures in the cave. There's the mouth of the cave at this end. I have the feeling that the soldier who came with me is actually going through the cave for the very first time. He's reacting very much like I am. And the lantern guide is answering questions for him and pointing things out to him that he doesn't seem to know. So actually I'm not sure why he's with us. But he's been very helpful with his flashlight and occasionally holding onto my GoPro. And I keep wondering whether there's a struggle within the community if they fight over the issue of lighting, because this cave would definitely be tremendous if they strung some actual lights in here. But if they did that, then perhaps there wouldn't be quite as much need for like a guide with a lantern. So maybe they fight back against it. So, so we've reached the Coffin cave, and these are all referred to as teak, made out of teak wood. So, and they estimate 2,400 to 1,000 years ago. And I saw very similar structures in the Philippines, actually. If you're tall, by the way, you have to be very careful to thread your way through these. Don't hit your head. But I often think about the revenue from tourism in general. Like, more remains of the teak wood coffins. Makes me wonder why this spot in particular. I guess it's because it's so close to the entrance. That's why they would have put the coffin here rather than deeper in, because it's a very short distance back that way to the entrance. Maybe that's one of the reasons they used this section for graves. But when you think about it, people in Pai benefit, like hotel owners, restaurant owners, greatly from tourism, of course. They get a lot of the income, but the reason people come to Pai is for something like this cave would be a reason a lot of tourists came to Pai in the first place. But the cave may or may not benefit financially, directly as much as they should, perhaps. They could argue that they deserve a piece of the pie, all the money that comes into Pai. Another teak wood coffin site. And they all have the same basic structure, so they clearly all date from the same era. he says as if he knows what he's talking about. But yeah, it's very warm here as well. I think my guide must be feeling the heat of the lantern. It's maybe so hot.
Yeah, hot.
Yeah, hot. From up here, you get a nice view of the dam. Huh. Makes me wonder who had the idea to build that dam. See how high we are above the water there. I can see one fish at least down there. And our height explains why these stairs are so steep. I'm telling you, if you worry about putting your hand on that bat guano, you quickly change your mind, I think. You don't want to be squeamish. You need the safety and the support. The guy in front of me, you can see his hands way up in the air. He doesn't dare touch them. But yeah, he could go tumbling down. I will hold myself upright. We'll worry about the bad guano later. I noticed as we left the teakwood Coffin cave, my guide raised her hand up just a little bit and just sort of brushed her hand alongside a couple of, looked like very specific rock formations. And I wondered whether that was kind of a, a good luck sort of thing when you go to a cemetery, a little superstition, just to do something. So at this point, I'm not sure what happens, because you can walk on a trail, I think, but my guide seems to be directing us back to the boat, which I don't mind. Why not? I'll go back by boat. There they go. Ah, that one, the guide is pushing as well. And of course, my brain can't help but wonder how much the drivers get paid as opposed to the guides. It's in there. Sorry, fish. I already gave away all of my fish food. Okay, that is an amazing view. Yeah, my guide is really quite thoughtful. She's thought these things through. She made sure that I got the seat at the front of the boat. With her experience, she'd know that this would be the place to sit when we're going back into the cave system. Look at that. If everything was dark during that trip through the cave, this makes up for it. The soldier is poling behind me. Looking at that pole. Yeah, it's a little bit deeper here, 3 or 4 feet maybe. But in a Tom Sawyer era, it would be no problem to walk and swim down this river through the cave. But yeah, look at that formation up there. Reminds me of pipe organs, giant pipe organs in churches. You can see the light disappearing behind us. And as you look around at some of these larger structures, you can't help but think about the time scale again. Just how long it would take for something like this to form any of the structures around us. Absolutely dwarfs our lifetimes. Not even a comparison in the amount of time. Same thing for the cave itself, I guess. I'm assuming the river carved the cave. It's funny, the language is always that the river runs through a cave, kind of implying that the cave was there and then the river goes through the cave, but it's really the exact opposite. It's the flowing water that carved the cave to begin with, right? I suppose a cave could somehow exist in a different way, but normally I think the river makes the cave. Can't have one without the other. Yeah, it's an interesting cave too from a visitor's point of view, because it feels like we've come a long way, and now that I'm going back into the cave, it feels like we got a long journey ahead of us to get to the beginning, but not really, because a lot of the places we went were sort of side trips. You went off in one direction into a cavern and then returned to the main trail. So it's probably not nearly as long, back to the opening of the cave as you might think. In fact, I'm even more right than I suspected, because I think there it is right there. So there's the entrance to the cave. Huh. I thought there would actually be some kind of a lengthy walk back to the front, but in fact, it's not at all. Just that you go in different directions as you go through the cave on your little tour. And I guess something else that you can do here is return at sunset, at dusk, and these 300,000 swifts all fly out of the cave. And I guess the bats would fly out of the cave as well at that time, right? Go feeding during the night. So that's something else you can do here if you're here later in the day. She's powering down her lantern. It's done its job. Back in the real world. I've noticed that feeling when I've gone into other caves, that you quickly forget about the other world above ground. Even if you're in there for an hour or 2 hours, you quickly adjust to your new environment. And then when you step outside back into the bright sun, it's like, what is this place? feel like an underground troll, underground dweller has come up to an unfamiliar world. Well, conclusion, to sum up my experience of the Lod Cave, loved it, absolutely loved it. I'd go back anytime, I recommend it highly. Yeah, it's a great cave, huge caverns, all easily connected, the bamboo rafting down the river, the whole package was really, really interesting. Yeah, great experience. I've left the cave, by the way. I'm halfway back to Pai already. I stopped at a viewpoint. There is the official viewpoint area over there. You can see all the people taking pictures. And I found a little spot off to the side where I can sit, take in the views. I was here this morning. I stopped on my way to the Lod Cave, and I was early enough to get some really nice sort of early morning light, kind of a sunrise setting out over that valley, looking down towards Pai. The last couple of days, actually, the sun has kind of disappeared. There's been a lot of clouds during the day, heavily overcast, and there's been rain at night. I think both nights, like last night and the night before, I heard rain. I was actually lying in bed and I heard something and I thought, what the heck is that? And I wasn't sure what it was, and I got out of bed, opened the door just to check, and I was like, yeah, that's rain coming down. So I don't know what's going on with the weather. Anyway, back to the cave. My favorite thing about it, I mean, to be honest, what I'll remember most, I think, is my sweet grandmother guide who led me through the cave with her kerosene lantern. That was a lot of fun. Of course, you can look at these things from two different points of view. It's a lot of fun to have this elderly woman as my guide. She was very sweet, very friendly. She's pointing out the crocodile, the Buddha rock, the King Kong rock. As she told me at the beginning, she speaks a little English. But to be honest, she doesn't speak any English at all, but she did memorize those words. So she actually knows the English words King Kong. So when she pointed out the rock that looks like a big gorilla head, you know, that's the King Kong rock, and that's the gorilla rock. I mean, the crocodile rock, and the seated Buddha, stalactite or stalagmite, whatever it is. She knew those English words, and that's about all. So you could say the cave experience could be improved greatly if they had younger English-speaking guides. Better yet, younger English-speaking guides who know a bit about geology and can talk about what you're seeing, the history of this cave system. But at the same time, do you really need someone yammering at you endlessly about geology and calcium and rock formations and historical periods, all stuff you're going to forget 10 minutes after you leave the cave? Because that's been my experience with guides in the past. If you've had a guide who really knows the area, sometimes it's a bit too much. You know, they're telling you all this in-depth history. To be honest, I would prefer it if she did speak English as a guide, but not so much that she could tell me about the cave. I would be very interested about her. Who is she? How long has she been a guide? How much does she get paid as a guide? How does the system work? Do you get paid a salary for the month or a day, or do you get paid on a, you know, job basis? If you take 5 groups through in one day? Do you get paid X amount of baht per group? Or exactly, how does it all work? Or even the rotation schedule for all the guides. Is there a system in place? This is the kind of stuff I'm really interested in. And I would pepper her with questions about that, not necessarily about the geology of the cave. And the lantern itself, the kerosene lantern, is very romantic and very interesting. And I'm assuming it's economical for them to do it that way. It casts a lot of light, probably relatively cheaply compared to, say, constantly buying batteries for a powerful flashlight. That would get expensive. But as romantic as the lanterns are, I noticed that they're so indiscriminate in the light that they throw. It throws light in all directions. So it blinds you, basically. She would hold up the lantern to show me something, but the light is hitting my face just as much as it's hitting the rock formation. And so, of course, my pupils constrict, and suddenly I'm blinded. I can't really see anything. I noticed that partway through the cave. I noticed it particularly when I was on the boat, because the lantern was directly in front of me, and as I was looking around, I couldn't see anything. It was just dark. It was so dark. And then I held my hand up, and I blocked the light from the lantern from hitting my eyes. And as soon as I did that, it was like, oh, whoa, suddenly I could see all around me. So the lantern actually reduced visibility greatly for me whenever it was shining, in my face. So, pros and cons of everything. But yeah, it was a very, very, very fun. My sweet grandmother guide with her lantern, and I'm so interested in her life story. My second favorite thing about the Lod Cave, probably the boat, like the bamboo raft, and the fish. As a combination. You see the fish at the very beginning as you're going into the cave, and you can feed them at that point. That's very, very interesting to see them, the way their behavior has changed over time, to be sort of hanging out in the calm parts of the water just outside of the heavy stream, the heavy current, resting there, waiting for people like me to show up with food to throw to them. And then as you're in the bamboo raft, they're just right there in the water all around you, and you can feed them as you go by. And that raft was a very fun experience, to be pulled down that river. And of course, the third, probably the cave itself. The cave really is spectacular, huge, and really interesting. So many interesting elements with it, the giant columns, the beautiful formations. I think if I were there on my own without a guide, I would have spent a lot more time inside the cave. I would have stayed in certain places and taken photographs and taken more video and just sort of looked it over a whole lot more. There was this sense of you got to keep moving because you don't want to waste the guide's time too much. I was already stopping enough that I started to wonder whether my grandmother was wondering, it's like, oh, why do I get the guy with the GoPro, because I was stopping to talk and film things, and I had to put in new batteries and new memory cards and things like that. So that was kind of funny to think about. But now I understand how the cave is put together a whole lot better. I'm always that way. I talk about that a lot, that before I go someplace, I find it almost impossible to get it straight in my head exactly what the place is like. What am I going to see when I get there, and how is it organized? But now I have it straight in my head that it does have the 3 caves, the column cave, the doll cave, and then the teak coffin cave. And I wasn't sure how you could only go to 2 of them and not go to all 3 of them. Like, how could you only go to caves 1 and 2 and not do the bamboo raft? I mean, how does that all fit together? And it became very clear by the end that, in a sense, all 3 caves start from the same place. You enter the mouth of the cave, go in a little bit, and just off to your left, would be where you get the bamboo rafts to go down the river, or maybe to the right. No, to the right. To the right, you can go down. It's right there. The river is right there. So you could go straight to the rafts if you wanted to, but you don't. You go off to the left on kind of a detour, and that takes you into the giant column cave system, that cavern, and then you kind of go deep into that cavern, and you come back out. Then you go into the doll cavern, come back out, and then you get into the, the bamboo raft and go down river. And the only way to get to the teak wood coffin cavern is to take the raft, because it's at the very end. So you take the raft down river to where the river leaves the mouth of the cave, get out of the boat, and then you go to see that cavern, back in the boat, and you go back to the beginning again. So that's, I have it physically straight in my head now, how the caverns relate to each other and how they all fit together. But I would say you have to do all three. There would be no point. I mean, sometimes, certain times a year, cavern number 3, the river rafting, is not available because of the water conditions. But if it's possible to do that, that's what you want to do. You really want to do all three, because as you go down the bamboo raft on the river, that's so interesting by itself. The trip down towards the mouth, and then the trip, and then the trip back into the cave itself. The lighting is just extraordinary for that. Very, very interesting. So you want to do it for that reason alone. And then, of course, you get to see the fish, and then you get to see the teak wood coffins, and the one remaining petroglyph that is there, the painting on the wall that the hunter made thousands of years ago of his bow and arrow, and then the animal that he shot. All very, very interesting. So you really should do all three. And of course, if you come with 3 people, you can divide up the cost of 500 baht between 3. For one person, it gets a little bit pricey, I suppose, 500 baht for one. But it's even worth it to pay 500 baht just for one person, I think. It's worth it to go into that cave. How to go to the cave is an interesting question. You can do it so many different ways. The best way by far would be to go there to the village at the cave and spend the night there, or 2 nights there. I noticed there's a really nice resort in that village itself. The village was really beautiful, really interesting. The road to get there is very scenic. So the best way to do it, and the way I would recommend, would be to go to the village, stay in the village itself, and then you can just spend the whole day in and around the cave. You could return to the cave at dusk, watch all the birds fly out or the bats fly out. You could go, early in the morning. You could see the bats activity. You can see all the mist on the river and in the valleys. You can spend the whole day with the cave. So that would be the best thing to do. You could also just stay in Pang Mapa. That's the town right on 1095. There's a lot of guest houses there. There's a 7-Eleven there. There's all kinds of cafes and restaurants there. So you could stay in Bang Mapa. That would be very good as well, just to stay in that area. And you could do what I did, stay in Pai. Takes about an hour, hour and a half, depending on your riding speed, to get from Pai to the cave. So it's an easy day trip. Hour and a half riding there, 2 hours in the cave, hour and a half riding back. Very enjoyable day. So you can do it from Pai. You can take a tour from Pai as well. Just hire a tour group, go to a company and they'll drive you there and drive you back again. You could do it that way. You could even do it from Mae Hong Son. It's a possibility. Stay in Mae Hong Son, wake up in the morning there, ride to the cave, spend the day there, and ride back to Mae Hong Son. Final possibility, you could do it as a pit stop. If you're riding from Mae Hong Son to Pai, it's about halfway between the 2 towns. So whatever direction you're going in, you could start off early in the morning, leave from Mae Hong Son, stop at the cave, visit the cave for 2 hours, and then get back on and ride the rest of the way to Pai. Or if you happen to be going this way, start in Pai, visit the cave, and then end up in Mae Hong Son. So there's multiple ways you could visit the cave. But as I said, the best way would be to stay in the village, second best, stay in Bang Mapa, find a guest house there, and then, or you could just base yourself in Pai or Mae Hong Son to visit it. So, yeah, that's the end of my experience of the Lod Cave. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that very, very much. Had a really good time. One more experience to add to my memories of my time in Pai. Yeah, enjoying it here very much. And I'll see you, as always, in the next video.